Shalom Aleichem. I am honored to be here to share Divrei Torah. When Rabbi Moshe told me that I should give maybe a shmuz or something to the kollel, so I said that shmuz Baruch Hashem, you could hear from many people. You don't need somebody like myself to speak Divrei Chizuk and Musar and Musar. The kollel is doing tremendous things for the community over here for many, many years. I know that firsthand. A lot of family members over here, closer family members, extended family members. Baruch Hashem. When I grew up in Saint Laurent, it wasn't like that. When I grew up in St. Luke and coming to visit Saint Laurent, it wasn't like this. So, Chazak Baruch on the Rabbanim and all of the Rabbi Nataf and everybody else who really has built this community. What I did want to speak about is a subject that you might not hear from other sources, because this is something that we don't usually have the opportunity to learn about, because it's not something that is commonly learned as a subject. And it's over the years, a few Talmidei Chachamim have worked on this and have developed and culled and have been drew out from different sources of how the Chachmei Morocco are posek. And the reason why I feel that this is so important for especially people in our generation to have, if you notice, there are Sephardic Mishnah Berurahs. You ever see the Sephardic Mishnah Berurahs? There are like 8 or 10 of them, almost all very similar in style. They bring what the Kaf HaChaim says, or Letzion, Gaon Rav Ovadia Yosef, and the Ben Ish Chai, and it goes over. But somebody from Morocco wants to know, okay, so how am I supposed to be posek? I open up a Shulchan Aruch, I hear all these type of shmuot. Did we follow the Ramah? Did we follow the Shulchan Aruch? We know that Rav Ovadia Yosef speaks a lot about following the Shulchan Aruch. Is he coming to say that the Moroccans don't follow as much? I want to know, as somebody who is from a Moroccan background and has a Moroccan derech hapsak that I got from my forefathers, how am I supposed to open up in Psak Halacha? It's very confusing. You open up the Shulchan Aruch, the Ramah, and then there's Mishnah Berurah, and then there's all other poskim. So how am I supposed to follow halacha? It's a very confusing subject. I think every Sephardic yeshiva bacher has this problem, and as you grow to be a Avreichim, so you want to figure it out. So I was kind of left in the dark in this, and I had to figure things out on my own. And I'll share with you the maskanot that I have. And we put out a kuntras. A friend of mine, his name is Hagon Rav Yosef Peretz from Panama, and myself, and we came up with the following. I want to start from the beginning, how the Hishtalshelut Derech HaPsak was. And I know people have heard different shmuot. Moroccans, do they follow the Chida? Do they follow the Ramah sometimes? Hashpa'ah from Chabad? All of these things are just because they didn't learn the subject. If I'm going to speak to you about contracting, then you'll tell me, Lebhar, you don't know what you're talking about. Just like, talk about something else. And that's sometimes when you speak to people and they're talking about a subject, they haven't even given it enough courtesy to be ma'ayin in the mikorot to speak about it, and they still feel authorized to speak about it. It's an interesting thing, interesting phenomenon. Don't know why, but that's why it is. So let's start from the beginning. After the Khatimat Talmud, there was many things that were left in the dark. How exactly we are posek after Khatimat Talmud? We have the Baruch Habar. We have the Rif was the first who really gathered all of the sources and started bringing maskanot le'alacha. There was still many loose ends, and then the Chibur HaGadol, HaNesher HaGadol, the Rambam, gathered from all corners all of the different areas in Psak that were not even that were not even relevant to halacha l'maaseh now, and he just brought everything together. They became the go-to of the psak halacha, the Rif and the Rambam, to a point that the Rambam was accepted in many of the communities by the Sfaradim in Sfarad, but especially in southern Spain, like in places like Sevilla, places like Andalus. The Rambam had a big ashpa'ah, and the Rambam basically followed the derech of the Rif. He writes in one place, he's only cholik on the Rif in a few places, many more places than that, because there's always yotzei min haklal. But he definitely had a netiya towards the Rif, and that was the derech psak halacha that the Sephardic Jewry held as well. And Morocco was very mushpa from the Rambam, as well as it's written in the Sefer Minchat Zikaron of Yedidia Motsonego in Klalin Aleph, and the Rav Rahman, Rav Rifal Moshe Chaim Ben Naim in Rachamim Shutim Choshen Mishpat. He writes, Kol sheken ledidan shekibalnu Maran umitchila kibalnu horot Rambam. That was the original Sephardic tradition, was to go in this derech. But then the Maharam in Rothenburg got put into jail. Doesn't have to do with anything. The Rosh knew that he was next. He never visited the Maharam in Rothenburg in jail because he knew he was next. They were running after him. So he got a psak to run away and to go to Spain. The Masoret has it. He came to Spain to Katlona, and there he learned with the Rashba for a week. Rashba was the Gadol Ador of Spain, it's more northern Spain. And the Rashba told him, go to Castilla. When you're going to go to Castilla, that's where you'll be able, the Jews need you over there. So the Rosh came to an area in Spain called Castilla. And that's when Sephardic Jewry changed. The Sephardim gathered around the Rosh, and the Barbanel writes in Zevach HaPesach, Harosh hu Rabban shel Sfaradim. And the Marshach writes, Harosh kibalnu horot Harosh. I could keep on reading you sources in Shilut Teshuvot Marshach Elikav Simikuf Lamedan Harosh Rabban shel Sfaradim. Rabbi Yaakov Ibn Sur, one of the great Moroccan Gedolim of the 1700s, he writes in Mishpat Uzdaka Yaakov Chelik Bet Siman Hey, Kach hayu omrim in Morocco. That's how they used to say, Ki hamakom asher yifnei harosh kacha yelchu. Because in Morocco they came from Castilla, as we're going to see soon. Rav David ben Yichya writes, Horato nitpashta bechol malchutahu. Rav Yitzchak Yisraeli, Hir Hashem, Ruach HaGadol, Harbinu Asher ben Yichya, Latzet Meretz Ashkenaz, Eretz Molato, Litula, Toledo, Toledanos from there. Le'eret eden lo'otzio be'emshech sichlut, b'diot le'or ha'chochma. Ksavat Rav Yehuda of the Rosh, Met Hashem hayta zot la'amid talmidim harbe be'atzot Sfarad. The Rivash b'Sfarad yarshu et Sifrei Chochmato. The Bet Yosef and Choshen Mishpat, Siman Resh Tedvav, Gam Minhag Sfarad le'achziko le'arosh le'Rabban, al pi zeh miyusedet. The Avkat Rochel writes it as well in Shelot Ushuvat Avkat Rochel Simkut Tzadiyek. V'chayina v'chayina. The Rosh was nitkabel as the Rav of Spain, especially in that area in Castilla. Who else was in that area? Was the Ran was a big ashpa, Minagi Sfarad. The Tur was a big ashpa, obviously the son of the Rosh. Abu Draham was from that area. That is all a little bit different than Katlona, and you're going to see in some of the Sfarim of the Milchamot Hashem. He says, V'yesh Sifrei Sfaradim Yoter Meduyakim Mishila. There's a lashon like that. If I can find it over here, he says, Sifrei, the Ramban Milchamot Brachot Daf Mem Dalad Avalad Sifrei Sfarad Yoter Ne'emanim Misifrenu. That means there was Katlona, there was Sfarad. So that we don't paskin as much as the Ramban and as much as the Rashba, and more like the Rosh, as we're going to see, that's the hashpa'ah that there was the Sfaradim were mikabel the Rosh. So there's a common mistake that people like to say, what is the psak halacha based on? In the Hagdama of the Bet Yosef, he writes, so the Bet Yosef comes along, he sees a lot of different chiburim, and he wants to make one bait that we're going to know how to be posek. So he has his famous klal of Tere Migu Telat, 2 out of 3. Which is the Rif, Rosh, and Rambam. And he writes in his Lashon, Asher Alem Nishanim Bet Yisrael, that Bet Yisrael relies on this. And the misconception is that people think that the Bet Yosef gave a token Ashkenazi for the Psak Halacha. 2 Sfardim and 1 Ashkenazi. That way he balances it out. It's not really called balancing it out. And that's not true at all. The reason why the Rosh was nitkabel because he was the main posek of the Sfaradim, in a way more than the Rif and the Rambam. I can't say more. In a way, there was much more nitkabel, and that was the area that was nitkabel. They were the Morei Hara, these three Rabbanim, and hence Bet Yosef took them and as 2 out of 3. The Rama says, well, there's a lot of minagim that are based on Tosfot and Rashi, and I'm going to add that in as well. And Rav Anvanuto, Rav Gadluto, he said that when the Bet Yosef is not going to bring something, I'm going to bring it that is going to argue, I'm going to bring what we follow, but also bring things that he didn't bring. And that was the Rama. Instead of splitting the Jewish people into 2, Rav Anvanuto, he wrote the Mapa on the Shulchan Aruch. Kayadua. Now, okay, so we're left with the Bet Yosef now. We followed the Rosh, and all of a sudden the Bet Yosef. Now the Rosh has a big ashpa on Sephardic Halacha. I'll just give you a few examples. If you take a look in Ilchot Chanukah, there's a famous example. Just Tafresh Ayin Aleph. The Sfaradim go like the Shulchan Aruch that we light 1 menorah per household. Ashkenazim, everybody has a menorah in the house, and the Taz asks. It's the Hepech, the Sfaradim should go according to the Rambam, Ashkenazim should go according to the Rosh. But the truth is, it's not a pele now that we understand that we followed the Rosh in a way much more than the Ashkenazi. Even the Ashkenazi, they're prescribed that it's not exactly legamri the sheet of the Rambam. That's another discussion. But it's a whole mindset that we have to get used to, that the Rosh was the central psak halacha of the Sfaradim. The reason why we have chamin on Shabbat, that we're makel to have it for Ma'achal Ben Drasai and on, not only the Moroccan communities, Rav Ben Tzina Bashol, Rav Ovad Yosef, they all say the Minhag Sfaradim is not like the Shulchan Aruch and Siman Reish Nun Gimel, that we're posek like, that he was posek like Rabbanan, that has to be Mvushal Kol Sarko. Even if it's Ma'achal Ben Drasai, according to the Sephardic Minhag, is based on the Rosh, who says, She'oneg Bnei Yisrael adukim heim be'oneg Shabbat. Like the Bnei Israel, like they don't mess with my dafina. They take anything else away. Don't mess with that.
But you agree that the Taz didn't, from his question, doesn't hold of your whole historical theory.
It's not my historical theory. I brought you a bunch of sources. They say that's the Sfaradim.
The fact that Taz asked the question, he doesn't work with your assumption.
Could be.
I'm just pointing it out.
Could be. I don't know if he asked it in a way that why did he. He's saying they a lot of times they go like the Rambam. I mean, a lot of these klalim we're going to see. You could always ask questions, but this one didn't say. This one didn't say. I'm going to try to be solel derech how the Bnei Sfaradim. I call the Sfaradim Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, Turkey, very important. The Turkish Rabbanim, and all of that is one ma'alech. And then there's Edot HaMizrach, which is more Iraq, Iran, half of Syria. Some had Megorashim, some didn't. It's Shamayim va'aretz, Rachok mimizrach le'ma'arav. No pun intended. It's a different Kabbalah of derech psak halacha, and it's important to know, at least as somebody who is from a Moroccan community, what are the klalei psak, and I'm going to lay it down very, very simple. There is going to be like 5 or 6 different klalim you have to remember, and then you're more or less, and then you know yourself how to approach a Shulchan Aruch. And there's always going to be Yotze Min HaKlal. You're never going to have a derech psuka in everything. There's always going to be Yotze Min HaKlal. But even having Yotze Min HaKlal, it's important to know what the klalim are. That way you know what your direction is more or less. Like we were driving here, there's a lot of traffic. The klal told us to take this way and that way. We would have gotten here 15 minutes later. We did some Yotze Min HaKlals, correct? Some Yotze Min HaKlal Pi Halacha, some maybe not. That's another question. But it's all to know at least what Rabotenu, our Rabbanim, for hundreds of years. You have to understand, Morocco it's one of the unique countries that had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Chachamim that followed these klalim lema'aseh with tremendous amount of money at stake and other hanhagot for generations. There was always Rabbanim that could say in this area a little different. This area you're always going to have that. That's the dynamics of Torah. I'm saying there was in their Piskei Halacha for hundreds of years. This is what I'm gonna be moser this their klalim and you'll see sometimes it won't work out, sometimes it will work out, but at least you'll see what the derech is. Okay, so now we got to the Shulchan Aruch. Yeah.
The Shulchan Aruch said, he speak just for the Edut HaMizrach?
So Shulchan Aruch didn't know about Edut HaMizrach. For the Sfaradim, you mean?
Yes.
I don't know. It's a good question. Did he mean...
He decided to take 3 poskim, or?
Why didn't he, in other words, why didn't he worry about those who have minhagim al pi Ashkenaz? He made a disclaimer. Anybody who has a minhag not like me, follow your minhag.
No.
That's what maybe that's his disclaimer. Otherwise, he was comfortable that they should, everyone should follow his psak halacha.
He's the Shulchan Aruch, even for Morocco, even for.
Well, there was no Morocco then, right? Because what happened was the Almohads came in the 1200, 1300s. The communities that the Rif, the Rambam, the Ribigash, the Ibn Ezra, all of the Donash ben Labrat, all of these Chachamim that were in Morocco at some point, it was very weak because of all of the persecutions that there was. And there was a community, but it wasn't very big. It was called the community of the Toshavim. A lot of the Toshavim were also originally from Spain. They just got there before the Girush, and they were not as influential. In 1492, everything changed. Shnat Mizre, it's called. Shna of Rish Nun Bet, that the Jews were exiled and they came to according to the Barbanel, 50,000 Jews came from Spain to Morocco. In the first few years, 30,000 of them or something of the like perished because of a plague that there was. A lot of takanot already started to be written over there. It was a whole thing that happened at that time, and because of this tremendous situation now, so you had a lot of the Migurashim came to Morocco. They followed the Rosh like they always did, right? They followed the Rosh. They came from Castilia. He was the Rav. So in Morocco, everything started with following the Rosh, a little bit the Rambam, a little bit the Rif. Now, a Sefer comes out, Shulchan Aruch. What happened? So, the Kabbalah of the Shulchan Aruch, it's not exactly clear when it happened. There is a tradition based on Mishpat Uzdaka B'Yaakov, Rav Yaakov ibn Sur, that writes that Rav Shmuel ibn Dinan, who is the second or third generation of the Migurashim, he was one of the Matayim Rabbanim that was Masmich Maran, and he's really, from him, the klal came that in Morocco they accept Dat Maran as well. There is there's a Rav Abidbol who was from Sofru that writes in a Teshuvah Avnei Shaish that it's based on the psak of Teremi Gutla, 2 out of 3. Since we had this Kabbalah, and there are some who have a theory that since the Mari Beirav, who was the Rav of Maran, came to Morocco before, and he already said the klal of 2 out of 3, so we just follow this klal. That's what we accepted in Maran. It was natural to accept. But what is munach in this klal? What's linked in this klal? What is munach in this Kabbalah of Piskei Maran? And here you're going to have a big divergence between different understandings nowadays, how Maran is followed, and I'm going to present to you basically the main part that how do Moroccans follow the halacha.
How could someone, let's say in Morocco he was from the people who followed the Rosh, how could we tell him now you should follow, let's say because of this clan and the Rav Hakim, you should follow the Shulchan Aruch?
Yeah, it's a good question. I have no idea how it evolved. I don't know when it evolved, how it evolved.
No, could it evolve like that?
Obviously they felt that. So obviously they felt that.
Like
There is, I'm not going to have enough time to get into the discussions about what's the tokef of a Kabbalat Mara de Atra, even though she's not alive. So it's a big discussion. Well, who says there's such a concept of Mara de Atra? It gets very technical. I wish I could discuss it more. It's not simple at all. It's not a simple discussion. What I'll tell you is like this. Shelot Utshuvot Mishpat Uzdaka B'Yaakov of Rav Yaakov ibn Sur, once again, who was one of the tremendous lights he was on the Beddin of Rav Yehuda ben Atar, who was the Beddin that gave gave askama to the Orach Chaim HaKadosh. I'm sure you heard of the famous story. Chaim HaKadosh went to them for askama on his sefer. They were very careful on titles. Not everyone is a Gaon HaGadol. In those days, it wasn't that way. They wrote Kehar, Chav Heresh. I heard the story from Rav Shlomo Amar, but a lot of people say the story. I saw it written once. Kehar, Chaim ben Atar. Wasn't related. Yehuda ben Atar and Rav Chaim ben Atar weren't related. Kehar. So Rav Chaim wanted the sefer should have more prominence. He learned in Fez actually. He had a yeshiva in Fez, Rav Chaim Ben Attar. So he said, could you add on a mem? Kema, muharinu hara. So they said, we gave you kehar Hashem, kehaveresh, and you want kemohara betulot, kemohar. The famous story that these are great gdolim at the time. With talking about the Or HaChaim HaKadosh, his grandfather was the Rabbanim. They had Rav Yehuda Uziel at the time. They were second generation, almost Rishonim that came there. We're talking about a few generations, and they come to Mishpat Uzdaka B'Yaakov, who parenthetically is the prime source that Rav Ovadia Yosef Zichrono Livracha Zecher Tzadik Livracha uses to be miyased the klal of Kibalnu Orot Maran. He's culling it mainly from Moroccan Rabbanim, and he quotes Mishpat Uzdaka B'Yaakov in Chelek Bet of Mishpat Uzdaka B'Yaakov. See if I can find it easily. He starts writing Kol HaMakom Asher Yifna Rosh Kacha Yasu, and then he writes Hine החכם הנזכר, הוא של שמואל בן דנן, שהיה אחד מ-200 רבנים שסמכו את מרן, עין שו"ת בקש שלמה, סימן נ"ט. בקש שלמה is Rabbi Shlomo ben Denan, chief rabbi in Morocco in the early 1900s. He's the one who wrote that he was one of the 200 rabbanim. He says he was Mekabel that way. He's also named, So he's also named Ben Denan, and that was the tradition they had in their family. Others question it. תלה דבר בשני עניינים הנזכר, מטעם שכך רב פסקי דינים ראשונים. והנה אותם פסקי דינים שראה של הראשונים היו קודם שיצאו טיבו של מרן מריק רב יוסף קארו. All these psakim that he's saying we follow the Rosh and others, that's before Maran came out, שאז היו פוסקים על הרוב כספרת הראש. וככה היו אומרים, כי מקום מה שיפנה הראש אחריו ילכו. לפי כך פסקו כמותם שתי דינים הללו. והשבזן כתב מכל מקום, אמנם אחר כך כשיצא טיבו בעולם ונתפשטו חיבוריו בית יוסף ושולחן ערוך, וקיבלו אבותינו רבותינו דבריו וספרתו אפילו נגד 1,000 פוסקים, ושוב אין לנו אלא ספרתו. So he's laying down the law already of the land, that this is what they followed. We follow like Maran HaShulchan Aruch, במקום אשר ילכו יפנו. That's how it was the Psak Halacha. And Yehuda ben Attar writes this way, and countless other Moroccan Rabbanim, I'm not going to get into. They all write. There's one, his name is Yosef ben Samaon. He has a long tshuva on Umdana, like 50-page tshuva. Simanuntet. He writes, "Umuchzak umikuyam etzlenu yoter v'yoter mikol ha'aratzot shekibalnu horot maran." In other words, we are known in Morocco more than any other country that we follow Shulchan Aruch. I don't know how he knew what was going on in the countries then. They didn't have so much communication. But it was known that was a very strong tradition. Now, what is munach in this tradition? I'm going to go a little bit faster now. Is like this. Number one is that the poskim, most poskim, they all write that the Kabbalah was written in what's written in the Bet Yosef and in the Shulchan Aruch. Not in the other Sfarim. Not in the Kesef Mishneh, not in the Nefkat Rochel, not in the Bedek HaBait, which you would say, I don't understand. If I'm a Kabbal Shulchan Aruch, I'm a Kabbal the Gavra. So I'm a Kabbal the Gavra, I want to understand what he holds. And if he holds differently somewhere else, I should follow that. That's the question. And the Chida and others, actually, they say we're Mekabel Maran in other Sfarim as well. But this is what's written in the Rabbi Tachya Berdugo, in the Vayomer Yitzchak, in Likutim, and in many other early sources. This is how, for generations, in Chosh and Mishpat, it was nifsak le'alacha like this the whole time. That we're following what's written in Bet Yosef and Shulchan Aruch alone. Another klal, and I'm going to explain these klalim all in one moment. Another klal.
Even not the Bedek HaBait.
Not even the Bedek HaBait, which is surprising. Yeah, I know. I hear. So what's pshat? Like, why not the Bedek HaBait? We should. Another thing is that Vayomer Yitzchak, even though he writes this klal somewhere else, he says we do follow Maran in some other place. So he's soter himself. Okay, then the next thing is that we follow Maran, and we don't say Ilu haya ro'eh haya chozer bo. Chida brings such a klal. If Maran would have known these Rishonim, he would have been chozer bo. In Rabbi Shalom Besas brings from sources, we don't say that. We don't say Ilu haya chozer bo. It wasn't a svara that used to be said. So what's pshat? Another klal that we have, and this is where nivu velo yadu ma nivu. When Maran HaShulchan Aruch wasn't megale esdat, we followed what's written in the Ramah, Moran. Afilu keneged elef poskim. Oh. So now people say, oh, Morocco's like Ashkenazim. You're right, but not the way you think. We follow Ashkenazim more than they follow. They, according to Ashkenazim, the Ramah is not the final word. The Shach Taz argues there's a whole fight about it. In Morocco, Moram had a very strong standing, and it was a klal. Rabbi Yekutiel Berdugo brings it down in Torah Yekutiel Ilchot Shutzim and Aleph. Rabbi Rafael Berdugo in Mishpatim Misharim. And he just says, unless, he says, he protects himself. He says, unless, I'm sorry. Mishpat Sh'tekab Yawak Chelek Aleph, Siman Hey brings this klal, and Rabbi Yekutiel Berdugo and Chesket Karkaot, Siman Yud Zayin brings this klal, and Chachmei Marrakesh write this as well. There's Rav Moshe, there's Rav Shlomo Azankot, Rav Masulin, Rav Yosef ben Charbon, and Rav Lazar ben Al-Chazan. All these great Rabbanim also wrote this way from the Bedin of David Sabah. And he just the Rafael Berdugo was one of the great minds in Morocco. It was Mechadesh, a lot of chidushim, and he never follows klalim. Even here he brings the klal, but he protects himself. He says Zulat hechashish rayot brurot hefech midvarav, and then I'm gonna hold back. So this is another klal, and another important klal is that the early generations did not say safek brachot leakel against Maran. They didn't say. Sometimes it would happen. The later generations did. Shalom Misas, Rabbi Yosef Misas, Rabbi Toledano. They did start saying it. But in the earlier generations, I'm going to bring you many proofs not that way. They didn't. So what's Pshat? I gave you like 4 or 5 clubbing. So what we suggest is the following. Chachmei Morocco wanted to give a derech how to be posek. They weren't mekabel the gavra. It's very, very difficult to be mekabel Maran as the gavra. Maran de Atra is not around. I once got in big trouble because I wrote a letter to Rav Ovadia Yosef about bringing a chazonish in Yichot Shmita that writes that there's no such thing as Maran de Atra nowadays because everything was destroyed. So I asked his chavruta to read it to him, and his chavruta told me, listen, I got halfway through, and then blood pressure shot up. He was too upset. He couldn't read the rest of the letter. I said, okay, I'm sorry. It's a very difficult it's a big question. To be mekabel Maran as mitzad the gavra is a big question. And Rav Ovadia, it seems to be in a lot of his ktavim, that's how he's noted, that you're mekabel Maran mitzad the gavra. But according to that, how does he say safek brachot leakel, which he does many times against Maran? A lot of times he's mashma that we are choser. If Maran writes something, he follows Maran in his other sparim. If there's other achronim afterwards, etc., or Rishonim, he said, he uses all of those klalim. So, like, we follow Maran, but then you have a lot of big questions that have to be answered. But this is how Maran Rav Ovadia held Berochev Da'ato. Chachmei Morocco did not follow this. Chachmei Morocco, this was the big difference in psakim, and that's why I get frustrated when people say, oh, there's Rav Ovadia against the Moroccans. It's not true. Adarabah, Rav Ovadia was a very big boost to the cause of the psakim of the Moroccans. The Moroccans always held Maran. They were the first ones who started. Rav Ovadia quotes the Moroccan poskim. Then it came along, Ben Ishchai al Pi Kabbalah, a lot of things that became weaker, and Rav Ovadia reinforced that. He's reinforcing the original tradition of Maran that was in Morocco, which he quotes. There are some differences, but the main, I would say, there is a difference in the Derech HaPsak, is that when we were Mekabel the Psak, we were Mekabel it, that we want to give an easy, important, and accessible way to be able to be posek. You're going to start saying, if he saw Bet Yosef, if he saw Bedek Abayit, if he saw this, and the Davar Sof. We follow what's written Bet Yosef and Shulchan Aruch. If Shulchan doesn't write, we follow also Bet Yosef. If Bet Yosef doesn't express it, and Shulchan doesn't express it, we have the Rama. We don't say Safek Brachot Neged Maran. It doesn't end. We followed Maran. There's many proofs. I'm not going to be able to say because already time for Mincha is up, so I'm going to just wrap things up in Safek Brachot Leakel, Gabi Ilchot Tzitzit, by Pashat Talito, by Naflat Talito. You'll see the Sephardic halacha, the Edut HaMizrach halacha is that we say Safek Brachot Leakel. Rav Berdugo says no, we don't say Safek Brachot Leakel on that. We make brachot. We have by Lan Betalito at the end of Siman Chet. Maran writes, you make a bracha when you get up. Says Rabbi Divrei Yosef of Rabbi Yosef Berdugo Siman Bet. Even though Maran says to make a bracha, we don't follow that. What's pshat? Don't tell me it's because Safek Brachot Leged Maran, because we never said Safek Brachot Leged Maran. Divrei Yosef Berdugo Siman Bet says because we never said Safek Brachot Leged Maran. Now we can. So he has a issue of why we don't pass in dan betalito. I went a little bit fast now. I just wanted to finish up. That is the main klalim. There's much more to say, but if we remember one thing from this year, remember that the klalim that Chachmei Morocco gave over was that it should be halacha, brura, upsuka. There's always going to be yotze min haklal. But if you remember, this is the psak. We were mekabel maran Shulchan Aruch, according to Bet Yosef, and according to what's in Shulchan Aruch, not according to the other Sfarim. We don't say kimli against Maran. We said Maran, we don't say kimli against Maran, Choshen Mishpat. We don't say Safek Brochot Laken against Maran. We say when Maran wasn't Megalet Dato, we go according to Moram. Those are the main kladim. You'll more or less know how to navigate and at least how to approach halacha. And when you hear all different types of things, we follow this halacha, this halacha. This is generations and generations of psak, 500 years and more that has been going on. Chazak u'baruch.